So we are officially recording this. Welcome. Thank you so much for your interest in this program, the Downtown Hamilton Creative Placemaking Grant. Just letting people know this video is being recorded, so making sure that you turn your cameras off. I'd also ask that you keep your audio off for the duration of the presentation. I'm going to talk for about 30 minutes, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. And then we're going to leave 30-minute gap at the end where we can address any questions. You are welcome to put your questions into the chat, or you can hold them until the end, and then we'll try to address them then. So just wanted to start by introducing myself. My name is Claire Calnan. I'm a cultural project specialist here at the city in the placemaking and public art and project section. And I am the key program contact for this grant. So if you have any questions or you want to talk through your grant or anything like that, I'm the person that you'll get in contact with. I think most of you have my email as you emailed me to get in touch about this session. I also want to introduce Sarah Emke, who is a senior project manager with the same section. She's my colleague on this grant. She's been with the city for a lot longer than I have, so will probably be a great help during the Q&A period. She may jump in if I miss something, make some kind of glaring error or mistake. And she's also going to be watching the chat. So if you're putting your questions in there, she will be the one to monitor that. Okay, and yes, again, we'll have a Q&A at the end of the session. So if you would like to hold your questions till then, that would be great. We're going to start the session today with a land acknowledgement. So the city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. The land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that the land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, which was an agreement in 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. And today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. I think especially when we're thinking about place and the land that we're on and proposing projects for the land that we're on, it's essential to consider the past and reflect on how this land has had a different relationship to people over time. We want to keep in mind, especially those whose presence or memory may be threatened by contemporary placemaking actions. Placekeeping is a term that was coined by Indigenous communities in North America, and it's an approach that both acknowledges that the place and land are already there, we're not making them, and is focused on acknowledging the ecological, historical, cultural, and spiritual relationships, collectively how they shape the care of that space. I think placemaking, when it's at its best, acknowledges the ways that we interact with the land in all of its context and lets that information guide us to form grounded events, gatherings, and installations. If you are interested in learning more about placemaking or placekeeping, which is a bit of a more complex kind of term and practice and thinking, there are resources within the toolkit that point you to more places that you can look to. It's great. Okay. So the Downtown Hamilton Creative Placemaking Grant. In this session, we'll do a little brief introduction on what placemaking is. We are going to cover the funding program details, so briefly talking about eligibility and assessment, and then we'll have this question period at the end. So out of the 60 minutes, we're hoping that about a half of that will be in questions. We will stop recording, so we'll let you know when we're stopped recording so that you can ask your questions without those being broadcast to the world. A little bit of background on the grant, which I think is interesting to kind of cover in this. In 2021, the city of Hamilton launched a 2-year placemaking grant pilot program. It was really effective at sourcing community-led projects, enabling us to fund work that was really beautiful and being championed by people who live, work, and play here. This grant was very much modeled on that pilot program. In this session, we're going to cover the basics of the grant. We're going to point you to some further resources that you can access and offer some examples of placemaking in the hopes that this will help to inspire the projects that you are planning. So the Downtown Hamilton Creative Placemaking Grant is funded through the City of Hamilton. There are 3 different departments that are contributing to this grant with many overlapping priorities. So in terms of the why behind why we're doing this, there's a desire to create positive experiences for people in the downtown area to enhance a sense of well-being, safety, joy, and play. It's designed to create a sense of ownership. So handing the power over to community members, offering them additional resources so that they can help to shape the communities and spaces that they use on a daily basis. So increasing a sense of connection to the downtown, building a sense of belonging in this. If you do have funding, if you're running through an organization or like a not-for-profit, if you have funding through the CEF, we just suggest that you get in touch with your program officer to ensure that this does not affect your CEF funding. So start with, what is placemaking? So placemaking, we have this nice little graphic which shows a little circle of community, which is the people, a little circle of the place, and a circle of the project details. And placemaking is a place where all of those things kind of interact. So placemaking is a hands-on approach for enhancing public spaces in a neighborhood, a city, or a region, helping to make places more welcoming, inviting, inclusive, and engaging. Placemaking inspires people to collectively reimagine and reinvent public spaces. Placemaking interacts with the unique geography, culture, and heritage of a space, and is a way for residents to feel ownership of public spaces and use them in a way that is specific to the needs of the community. It's important, I think, to just touch on how placemaking is different than a community event. So if you were to move a placemaking project to a new location, some of the meaning in that project should be lost. So the place should be integral to the proposal that you're making. And should be reflected by the people using that place. The place is the driving force for, and the people that use that space are the driving force for the details of the project. And also that the process in terms of this particular grant is as important as the final result. So we want to see community involved in the decision-making. We'd like to see a diversity of perspectives. If it is a participatory project informed by a variety of perspectives, that will help in the strength. You'll see that reflected in the assessment criteria as well. So just some examples to kind of give you a sense of some things that have happened locally. Placemaking can be in the form of events. So we have on the left here a picture of Strange Waves that ran a music series last year, a series of music presentations at Ferguson Station using an underutilized local asset for a diversity of genres, music from a diversity of genres and places. And then on the right-hand side, you see the Fireflies in the Forest, which is a project from Surprise Hamilton that used an underpass, exhibiting the possibilities of using an underused space that offers a lot of potential when looked at in a particular way. I think in terms of local events, Art Crawl and the eventual development of Super Crawl would also offer a really good example of local placemaking activity that has evolved over time. So placemaking can also take the form of temporary installations. So sometimes we think of murals as kind of our first example, but there are a variety of other ways that placemaking can appear in terms of them being installations. So on the left, we have this Little Seed Libraries in Dundas, and on the right, the Powell Park Sidewalk Games. So these are 2 examples of projects that were funded through the Placemaking Pilot Program grant. So the Dundas Little Seed Libraries, there were a bunch of them that were put in place. It was a new idea to the community at this time, and the outsides of each of the libraries were painted by local artists. And the Powell Park Games were designed by neighbors and community members to provide a playful and creative element into the park to enhance the user experience there. It was really centered on children, which is kind of nice as well. Some international examples of placemaking. So there's this wall ball, which was produced in the UK. It was inspired in response to a series of public signs that restricted play. So a lot of people saying no ball playing signage was being put up. So the group put up a yes ball playing sign, and the group designed a ball wall that was specifically for that. There was a link to an online website where you could have instructions for different games you could play against a wall, and connected to it, they installed a vending machine where you could purchase balls to play with. And then this fabulous and dramatic Umbrella Sky project, which was in Portugal, a part of an arts festival there. It shows a colorful and playful installation that really truly transforms the way that street looks and feels. And some other examples of more gathering-based placemaking activities that happen on an international level. So on the left, we have the Harvest Dinner Party, which took place in New Jersey, addressing isolation, building community and connections in under-resourced neighborhoods. It shows how placemaking can help to build those networks, build a sense of belonging, and also support local business. And then on the right, we have the Streets as Places in Nairobi, Kenya. And the idea of building safer streets that are more welcoming to people. You can actually see in that picture off to the right, so that didn't capture so well in this, but somebody is continuing to paint the surface. So it was a participatory painting. And when things are put on the street, often it has been proven to increase safety, because as cars slow down to look, pedestrians and other users of the space tend to be safer. That picture of the street comes with a really big caveat when you're doing things in Hamilton. Just to warn you in advance, if this is something that you're planning, that installing projects on the streets in Hamilton is a long and expensive process. And essentially, when you're doing anything that's new, where there is no tested model for that's happened locally, we just ask you to pack your patience and your sense of persistence. It's possible you would need other funding sources. If things like road closures are involved, the grant may not cover it. There's also different levels of permission, investigations into the different types of material that are considered safe to use on roads or walking surfaces. It involves multiple departments within the city, each with their own demands and timelines. So these kind of projects on the street, I like to offer them because they are so beautiful to look at and interesting to think about. But if you are planning on doing something like that, it's not impossible, but it is a complicated process. Another thing we like to think about is placemaking on a year-round basis. We live in Canada. It's nice to consider thinking about place and community and how that can be imagined at all times of the year. We have on the left here, Lateral Office and CS Design, which collaborated on this like lit up teeter-totters. They happened in Montreal, but then also have traveled around. So this picture is from Kingston. I liked it because you can see the snow so clearly. And then there's the Vallée Illumina, which is a festival of lights in Whistler. So again, these are two quite large projects that might need additional funding sources, but hoping that they act as inspiration. So if you're new to placemaking, I encourage you to take a look at the website. There's a great resource there. We have a toolkit, and the toolkit covers the 6 principles for placemaking, 4 steps to placemaking, links to additional resources that you can find outside of us, valuing inclusion and diversity in the neighborhood, how to build those relationships healthy over time, planning and maintaining your placemaking project, which is another really important thing we like to think about. In the toolkit, which there was a version of it in the last grant and now it has been updated. It helps we added some specific placemaking project examples from Hamilton. So that helps to outline some of the particular considerations you might want to think about when you're imagining different project types and interacting with the city of Hamilton as a corporation. So the Downtown Hamilton Creative Placemaking Grant, who can apply? Applications can be accepted from local nonprofit organizations, so you don't need to be incorporated, and groups of residents, so a minimum of 3 adults. People applying do need to be residents of Hamilton. You don't have to have an address in that downtown region, the specific downtown region, but some articulation of a relationship to the space is helpful. The grant is designed to support projects that are in community for communities that use those spaces. So you'll see this need for multiple perspectives and shared decision-making that's reflected in the assessment criteria. This is why singular voices, like a singular person applying, is not sufficient as an applicant for this grant. The designated region. So this is one of the big differences between the pilot program and this particular grant, is that we are outlining an area in the downtown. So this grant will support activities in outdoor public spaces within this defined region in the downtown. The area borders on Victoria Avenue to the east, Queen Street to the west, Yonge and Duke to the south. Neither of those streets travels all the way across, so that's why there's the 2, and Strawn to the north. Projects must take place on public property or private property that is easily accessed by the public and considered public space. In all cases, you need permission from the landowner in order to move forward. We've included some parks that are along the border that might be considering, well, is that included or not, because it's right on the borderline. So the ones we are including: Carter Park, Corktown Park, J.C. Beamer Park, Jackie Washington Rotary Park, Strawn Linear Park. There are many parks and other public places that are inside of the region as well, but we're just listing the ones that are along the perimeter in case they're confusing. Bayfront Park is not eligible for funding through this program. There are also some preferred locations. This is where city staff and other local stakeholders have identified a need and a desire for programming. So I just want to mention some of those. Ferguson Station, Hess Village, John and Rebecca Park, Wellington Park, and commercial areas. So that's any street where there's, businesses that are close by that might benefit, and any commercial areas that are supported by a BIA would likely be, a celebrated choice. Program eligibility. So projects must meet all of the following eligibility requirements in order to be considered for funding. So the place-based projects, the project must be created to interact with the unique traits, local context of a place. The project must be new or being tested on a larger scale. So if you already have an annual event, this is not considered for funding. This does need to be a newer piece, or a newer piece of an annual event that you are testing. Projects must be temporary. So from 3 months to 1 year, if you are anticipating a larger or a longer lifetime for the project, we just need to review it and talk about it. What we're trying to avoid is orphaned assets. So things that are just left and not cared for by anyone, that the city eventually says, who owns this? So we just want projects where there is a demonstrated care from the community in order to look after those projects over time, and some kind of plan for how they will be eventually removed. Projects that include above ground gardening that needs watering may be eligible depending on the project scale. So just contact the grant staff in order to discuss. Again, maintenance and removal is going to be our main questions around that. The projects need to take place in the designated downtown Hamilton region on public property or private property easily accessed by the public and considered public space. Permission from landowner, we've kind of covered that. Projects and activities must be free and open to the public. Projects are expected to take place between July 2025 and May 2026. You'll also find on the website a list of ineligible projects, and so please take a look at that to get a better sense of what is not permissible. So the funding available. Funding is between $500 and $5,000, and it's related to the scale of the project. So we have categorized this into 3 kind of groups. So your one-day event, so this would be funding to support one-day events such as performances, gatherings, workshops, concerts. You can apply between $500 and $5,000 per event. Event series, so it's again the similar description events with a minimum of 3 dates, such as performance, gatherings, workshops, concerts, etc. So something that would take place the second Thursday of every month over a 4-month period or something like that would be something we would consider under the event series. You can apply from $500 to $15,000 for a series. Temporary installation projects, so creative temporary installations such as wayfinding, murals, light or video installations, vinyl wraps, little libraries. There's, many other things to add to that list, and you can apply for $500 to $15,000 per project. It's expected that if you are requesting less than $5,000, you will not need to be as detailed as people who are applying for $5,000 or more. So there will be an expectation of further details depending on the scale of the ask. And approximately 7 to 10 grants will be awarded through this program. The majority of the grants awarded will be under $5,000. Budget. Okay, so applicants may have other sources of funding. You can have in-kind support, or you can have 100% of project expenses covered by this grant. So grants are between $500 and $15,000. Applications, yes, we've covered this. Greater than 5,000 should offer more detail. So some expenses to consider when you're creating your project budget, city-related costs. If you again look at those project examples that are in the toolkit, that will run you through some potential costs that you might encounter for some different city projects. So I encourage you to use that as a resource. Some possible examples are permits. So permits for city spaces, for parks, roads permits, sidewalk closures, maintenance and removal costs, insurance. So anything taking place on public space needs to be insured. There is an insurance option that's available through the SEAT process, Special Events Advisory Team. So if you don't carry insurance, if you're just a group of residents, it is still possible to get insurance. Supplies and materials, fees and expenses for artists, demonstrators, and or performers, production expenses, equipment, and venue rental. So you can see the website will have a full list of eligible and ineligible expenses. So I encourage you to take a look at that as you are preparing your budget. This is our webpage, or part of it. So the website is hamilton.ca/placemaking grant. That will take you to the website. Please read all of the information that is on there. There's a lot of tabs to open and things seems very complex, but it does contain a lot of information that's really helpful. Please review the funding eligibility, the assessment criteria, and the expectations for funded projects. Take a look at the toolkit that's created to help you. It's a really light read and points to many other resources you can access if you want to dive deeper into any subject. Submit your applications by the deadline. So grant applications must be submitted by 4:00 p.m. on Tuesday, April the 8th, 2025. This is a submittable page, so a preview page. So the link from that hamilton.ca/placemaking grant website will lead you to this submission page on Submittable. To submit an application form online, you just need to create a username and password for Submittable. You can save your progress as you go and continue to work on your application. You can prepare a project budget and upload it to your application. You can submit your own budget, or you can use the placemaking budget template that we have available there. Just a note on Submittable that Internet Explorer does not support Submittable, so we recommend using Chrome or Firefox or Safari too as a browser. If you need any require any accommodations, or you want the application in an accessible format, please get in touch with me prior to the deadline to make alternate arrangements. So well in advance would be good, just so that sometimes it takes me a little bit of time to get back to people, and then you'll want time to fill it out as well. So review of the project. So the projects will be reviewed in a two-stage process. The first stage is that they will be reviewed by staff to ensure that the projects are eligible and that they're technically feasible. Once they have been approved through us, they will advance to a second assessment project. Applicants during the stage one may be asked to submit additional information if there are things that we're not clear about in terms of your proposal. In stage two, the applications that are deemed eligible and technically feasible will be reviewed by staff and an assessment team using the assessment criteria. Any terms and conditions that we need to will be outlined in a funding agreement. We will communicate with you via phone, email, or through the submittable application. So please keep an eye on all of those possible routes for communication. And please note that whoever you designate as your primary contact will be the person that we reach out to with questions and requests for more information. That is who we're going to be talking to. So just ensure that you add somebody there that you feel comfortable being in that position. So assessment. This is a merit-based competitive process. We're not sure how many applications we're going to get, but there is a possibility that we will not be able to fund all of the applications that come in. You can find the full assessment criteria under how funding decisions are made. That's a tab on the website. So please take a close look at these. These are just the kind of top titles of those criteria pieces, but you need to look at the full list underneath, as well as the eligibility requirements. So to making sure that you're hitting all of those as you apply. But this will give you a sense of how the assessors will be rating the submissions. So the assessment criteria number 1 is project demonstrates a place-based experience within the designated geographic area. Assessment criteria number 2 is the project encourages collaboration and interaction. Assessment criteria number 3 is that the project is new and demonstrates a creative or innovative approach. Assessment criteria number 4 is applicants demonstrate they have the resources to complete the project. The funding decisions will be made based on a metric of exceeds expectations, meets expectations, or is below expectations. To be considered for funding, the application must achieve the score of application exceeds assessment expectations or meets assessment expectations in each of the 4 areas of those criteria sections. Any applications that receive a score below assessment expectations in any of the assessment criterias will not be considered for funding. The assessment team will make funding recommendations based on the scores and also supporting a diverse range of projects. So we wouldn't necessarily want like everything to be a seed library across the city, but we're looking at also supporting a range of projects that happen in different areas. Many projects will be eligible, but the good ones will stand out because everything will intertwine. So looking at those assessment criteria, the people, the place, the project details, projects that are unique, creative, community created, and supported will be the ones that really stand out. Timelines. So we opened the application last week, March 2025. Everything went up on the website, toolkit, and the application form is live on Submittable. Applications, as I mentioned, are due by 4 o'clock on April 8th. There will be no late submissions accepted, so please get your applications in on time. All eligible applications will be reviewed by an assessment team, which is a mix of staff and community members. And they will use a scoring matrix, as I mentioned, meets, exceeds, or below. Projects are scheduled to take place between July 2025 and May 2026. Projects funded may be only a few days long, or they can be in place for up to a year. And again, if you want to challenge that year, then we'll just have a conversation to talk more about it. Additional resources. So the website is a huge resource. Lots of details on there. Please take a look at it thoroughly. And then if you want to get in touch with me, I just encourage to make sure that you've read that thoroughly first, because that will really help out. Access the toolkit. So this placemaking toolkit, as I mentioned, we've updated it. It points to many other resources you can look for. Google will also lead you down a wormhole of information and pictures if you're looking for inspiration or different ideas that have been done in different places. It's a great time to kind of dig in. There's also books and all kinds of things you can get into. If you want to talk about anything or you have questions, you can email me, so claire.callanan@hamilton.ca, or call me. My extension is on here, extension 2036, and we can go through your specific project questions. Great. We're going to go into our question period next. So I just want to remind everybody that applications for the project are due at 4 o'clock p.m. on April the 8th, 2025. And now if Sarah, we can end the recording. We'll see if anybody has any questions that have come up, and Sarah may help me out with this place because she's got lots of intel.